This is Talking Law on Radio 97, always Talking Law on a Thursday morning. Despina is here to answer your questions, and if she doesn't know the answer, she will find it for you like the tenacious tiger she is, and she'll bring it to us. All you need to do if you have a question is go to radio97.com.au. Down the bottom of the page there is a link, and you can send us your question either via email or through Facebook, radio97.com.au.
And Despina, so last year we spoke about the director ID numbers. They were coming into effect, and they are quite important because April 4th is a bit of a cut-off date, and I feel like with COVID and floods, everything else happening this year, it's the last thing on our mind, but the cut-off date is coming. So can you describe, I guess, or give us a bit of a recap as to what these director ID numbers are and why they're so important?
Absolutely. So we did mention it last year, and I suppose it was early in the piece. So now we want to remind everybody, because as you say, that people have probably forgotten with everything else going on in the world. But this is something close to home, and this is something that affects everybody around Australia, because we're talking about companies and people that are directors under the Corporations Act. And of course, the Australian Securities and Investments Commission governs those laws. So we are talking about all states and territories in Australia. So this is very, very important for anyone who is currently a director of a company or is about to become a director of a company, and regardless of the size of the business. So small to medium business owners, compared to large conglomerates, it all pretty much is the same.
Yeah, so even at-home businesses, say if you have like a little at-home salon or something.
Or a mum and dad fish and chip shop or something.
Yeah, it's everyone.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is what the people I'm really appealing to, because the large companies generally will always have someone advising them on a regular basis that they pay for. But it's really the mum and dads who have their businesses, like you say, under the umbrella of a company. And they may have forgotten about this very important aspect and change to the law. And we want to talk about it this morning, because if someone fails to comply with these laws, and we'll talk about the deadlines, etc., in a minute, there are very severe penalties. And as a small business owner, you certainly don't want to be trapped with having to pay substantial penalties to ASIC.
Yeah, and especially for something that can be so easily avoided as well, because this process only takes a few minutes.
It only takes a few minutes, really. Some people have said to me it's only a 5-10 minute job online. So I'm sure that is the case. It's not a cumbersome process. ASIC wouldn't, you would think, would create such a cumbersome process if they want everyone to comply. So let's talk about why this came about very quickly again to recap, and then we'll talk about the due dates. So the DINs, as we call it, the Director Identification Numbers, a unique number for every director in Australia, came about because ASIC thought this was a good way, or step one, I suppose, to try to stamp out illegal phoenixing. So we talk about what illegal phoenixing is again, and that is where a person has a company with assets, and when they know that they're about to perhaps potentially go under and they have a lot of debts and creditors chasing them, what they do is that they transfer all their assets in one company to a new company, and they leave all the debt in the first company. And then they create another company with different identification for themselves. So they're trying to stamp this out by directors having to apply for their own DIN, the Director Identification Number. So the due dates that we need to know about are these. So on or before the 31st of October last year, if you were a director, you actually have until 30th of November this year. So that's good, because if you already a director prior to that date, you do still have some time until 30th of November this year. But probably what's more important is those people who became directors between the 1st of November last year and the 4th of April this year, right? So that period of time, this second transitional period, during that period from the 1st of November to 4th of April this year, you only have 28 days after you became a director, so the company was created and you were a director, you only have 28 days from your appointment as a director to actually apply for your Director Identification Number. If you haven't done it yet, go online today and do it, because ASIC generally take a while to catch up.
Okay.
If they ever do with people not complying, they generally do. So The next critical date is coming up, though, in a couple of weeks, which is why I wanted to mention it today, and that is from the 5th of April. So that's only, I think, 2 weeks away. From the 5th of April, you actually have to apply for it before your appointment. So if you know that you want to create a company, say if you wanted to do it tomorrow, say if tomorrow was the 5th of April, you wanted to do it tomorrow, you actually have to apply for it today. So the day before you actually become a director.
Okay.
So it's really critical to understand.
All right, and most importantly here, this is the big one, there's some very big fines involved, so they're pretty keen on making sure that people get this done.
That's right. So strict liability offence, and if you fail to comply, you do commit an offence, and the maximum penalty is 5,000 penalty units, which does equate to a fine of over $1.1 million.
Ouch.
Million?
Yes. And
Oh my
1 year,
goodness.
up to 1 year imprisonment. Exactly. So I think everyone needs to not worry about, well, is this really going to work?
Yeah.
Why do I have to? Don't worry about
Just
that.
do
Just
it.
get it done.
Just do it, yeah.
Just do it. It's a 5-10 minute job. Just do it so you don't get a fine, which is why I'm raising it today to remind everybody, go online, just Google ASIC Director Identification Number, or just DIN, and that will actually bring it up, take you to the website on ASIC's website where you can apply for it. So that's really, really important to do. And whether or not at the end of the day it's actually going to stamp out a legal Phoenix thing, I think it's a step in the right direction. But as to what happens, what with that number you get at the end of the day, we'll have to wait and see. But don't wait any longer. Go get your director identification number today.
Because it's an easy process too, just a reminder. It's not going to be hours and hours of sitting at your computer. It could be about 10 minutes max, and you're saving yourself a big fine possibly down the track.
That's right. And I do want to say, when you apply for it, you do have to have identification with you, because in the past, what we found with this illegal Phoenix thing, believe it or not, there were directors that were registered as Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. So, and this is all about trying to stamp out illegal Phoenix thing. So understand that when you do apply, you do have to have your identification with you at the time to be able to apply for and get that director identification number.
Well, thank you so much, Despina, for coming on the show once again for Talking Law. If anyone does want to get in touch with you directly, where can they go?
So they can ring the office 55291 294. They can email info@prialalegal.com.au, and I will upload this segment as per usual by this weekend if anyone has missed this segment this morning on YouTube.
Yes, you can just search Priala Legal, Priala. Thank you again, Despina and Wayne.
We'll catch you next week.
See you then.